Hi, this is Matt Harrigan here with the Adult Swim Podcast, bringing you conversations about Adult Swim topics that may be of interest. On this week's episode, I'm talking to Tim Heidecker.
When I get up, all I want to do is go to bed again. Go to bed again. And go to bed again. When I
I don't like the Beatles.
Oh, you don't?
Not really. I know you like them. You think they're funny.
I think they're geniuses. They are funny, though, too. I think it's a better story than the story of Jesus Christ, the Beatles.
The Beatles?
Yeah. If you say Jesus Christ is the greatest story ever told.
Second greatest.
Yeah.
Which Beatles story is so great?
Oh, the whole thing.
The rise of them?
the rise, the fall.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on the Adult Swim Podcast.
Yes, my home away from home. My voice is a little deep today.
This finds us here in Atlanta at the Variety Playhouse shortly before On Cinema Live. Tell us about how you connected with Bob Odenkirk and your entry into Adult Swim. I know the story, but I'm asking that for you to tell other people.
Sure. Stories. Well, it's a little bit of a long and winding road. So, but you know, Eric and I were making stuff together in college, and then after college, we continued to make stuff together, and we were making them sort of as little art films that we thought were funny, or sort of making fun of art films. And one of them was our original Tom Goes to the Mayor short. And we had made some other things and some little animations and little sketches, I guess. And we had amassed sort of like 15 minutes worth of stuff, and we had screened them for friends and at like rock shows and stuff. And we just felt a little motivated to see what we could do with this. We were, I think we were aware of, I do recall I was living in New York, and I remember seeing sort of the first ad push from Adult Swim. Like I remember seeing a bus, or a subway ad. So we were kind of aware of Adult Swim as a thing, and felt that it kind of fit into our sensibility a little bit. And I was working in New York as a office assistant, and I wasn't really doing my job too much. I was kind of texting with Eric a lot and writing stuff with him, and also pursuing music and playing shows in the city. And anyways, I was using the office facilities where I was working to try to make some kind of inroad into the entertainment industry. And one of my ideas was, we were also fans of Mr. Show, and was to try to track down Odenkirk somehow, partly because we were fans of both of them, but at the time, David Cross was really like the hot guy on the scene. You know, his stand-up kind of was blowing up, and he was very much seen as, he was on Arrested Development, I think, and we were kind of maybe leaned a little bit towards Bob anyway, but we thought, well, maybe Bob would be more receptive to material. Not really knowing anything about him personally.
Cross being too hot to touch.
Too hot, yeah. Let's go for the underdog. That was, I think, our thinking. But so anyways, I, tracked down the production company that made Mr. Show through some internet searches, found that they didn't have a connection to Bob, but they put me in touch with his office. I got his address, and Eric and I sent our DVD with some headshots that were very stupid, very, over the top, ridiculous headshots. Funny headshots, and an invoice for all the materials, including shipping and handling. And
how much was the invoice for? Do you recall?
It was $50-something. I think it was something reasonable. It was accurate, It wasn't like $1 million.
That wasn't the joke.
That wasn't the joke. The joke wasn't the price of the materials. It was the idea of charging him for it. So that was going on. He thought that was very funny, and I think he called me because my number was on the letter. He called me out of the blue and I was at work, and I was like, blown away. Thought it was a prank, and it's Bob, and he's sort of just like, "Hi, I got this thing. It's hilarious. I'm watching it right now. Who are you guys? Where did you come from? Who do you know?
Were you prepared for that?
No, we had just sent it off into the darkness, not expecting any kind of reply. I think around the same time, I know around the same time, I don't know if it was right before or right after this, Adult Swim was doing a lot of sort of events in cities. Eric went to one of these events. We were carrying around our DVDs that were well made with a cover, with our
Not
contact
just
information.
the paper sleeve.
Not just like, sorry, I made this piece of shit, man. It sucks. But
And Eric, sorry to interrupt, is so aggressively tall.
I don't know if
That is
aggressively tall, but he's
intimidating.
tall. Yeah, I mean he's a presence, even and he's cool looking and stuff. And I think
He is
maybe
cool looking.
he was always cool looking. And the DVD got to Dave Hughes, who's one of the creators of Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Dave
right?
Willis.
Dave Willis, not Dave Hughes.
Yeah, Dave Hughes off the air.
Dave Willis received it. I don't know the story exactly from there, but I believe he didn't react positively to it originally, which is fine. And I can totally understand that. I don't know if I can totally understand not getting something right away or whatever. But he passed it on to a woman's
Khaki
Jones. And Khaki Jones, who was a Cartoon Network executive of some type
Yes.
at the time, she also contacted me because I guess I was the contact person. I was the administrative assistant for
Your
Tim and
phone
Eric.
was just
It was ringing off the hook. And she wrote, I think she might have emailed me, but said, Dave Willis got me this DVD. I think it's really funny. You should let Mike Lazo see it, or something like that. I want to show it to Mike Lazo. Can you write up some ideas and some pitches and stuff? So this was all happening while Bob was also talking to us. It's all within like the course of 6 months where there was like this little spark of interest from the entertainment industry, quote unquote, around our stuff. And one thing led to another where we wrote up like few ideas, one of them being Tom Goes to the Mayor. And they were kind of presented, I think Khaki wanted us to present them to Mike as interstitials, as little small in-between shows. And Mike called me and said, I think that Tom Goes to the Mayor could be a show, could be an actual show. And we were like, holy shit. Okay. What does that mean? And then it kind of moved pretty quickly from there, where we got an offer to develop it as a pilot. And then it moved on to it's cheaper to just make it as a series. And then Bob was kind of counseling us. He was kind of acting as our manager / agent the whole time, giving us advice and, sort of suggested, well, I can produce it so that I can help you get it all, make all this stuff actually happen. And that's how it kind of got kicked off.
see his legitimacy, his
Stature.
in the comedy world.
Yeah, I mean,
gave
it was just like
credibility.
it created a safe, it was a little bit of insurance for Mike and Adult Swim and everybody to be like, okay, these guys are with an established comedian, established, person that can at least make sure that these guys don't totally go off the rails here.
But maybe Khaki is the most instrumental person in this story, because I do remember that there was some resistance to that DVD, but I feel like Khaki was absolutely a champion.
Yeah, and that's really remarkable because it's very primordial stuff. It's not all there yet.
Yeah,
I don't
Humpers.
think. Humpers, yes. I mean, it's good, but it definitely feels like we got better, and that it's not everybody that can see something like early and not really formed yet and think that there's potential there. A lot of that stuff was very spontaneous and not very thought out, not very, we didn't debate much about whether we should do it or not. We just kind of looked at these video projects as like kind of recreational activities that we would do instead of, I don't know, playing video games or something.
You'd go out and fuck around in the park.
Yeah,
with a
we'd just
video
go
camera.
shoot a bunch of stuff, and then Eric would take it. He was shooting and editing events and weddings and stuff, and so he was kind of learning how to edit and learning how to use some of the equipment he had. So it was kind of started from that, and then we just thought, well, this is a little connected to like what we love about Mr. Show and what we love about Monty Python and that kind of stuff, but it feels a little it feels like it's our own little thing. So we kind of started like considering it a thing, like Tim and Eric is a thing.
That-
TimandEric.com.
You guys became a thing.
Yeah.
And do you remember when that show premiered?
I do remember. I think we had a little premiere event at this theater that doesn't exist anymore in LA called the Silent Movie Theater, or it does exist, but nothing's happening there. And there was obviously no sound, so that didn't really. No, I remember like it was because Bob was a very big champion of it right away, and it was like one of the first things he kind of produced. So he had a lot of his comedy pals there, and I was really uncomfortable with it because it was not clear. You know, it was still like we were still figuring it out.
You got Jack Black.
Well, Jack Black was the first, the big lesson from Bob, one of the many lessons from Bob, but, even before Adult Swim came in, he's like, you've got to get somebody, like me, but you got to get some people that are famous or at least are known to get in your stuff so people will see it, because otherwise no one's going to check it out.
Why is that, do you think? Just because people will trust the piece if there's somebody in it that they trust comedically?
I think even simpler than that is like, I like Jack Black. I want to see as much of him as I can. I'll see him in all sorts of things. So they're going to see it for him. And if they kind of get swept into what we're doing, that is all the better. But even before Jack Black, we made another Tom Goes to the Mayor, and Bob got David Cross to do a voice for this second Tom Goes to the Mayor short. And that, that we applied that lesson to the first several episodes of Tom Goes to the Mayor, of just trying to recruit some of Bob's famous friends to come in and do a voice. And Jack was, we had the third little rail in this, not that the third rail is always sort of a negative thing. It's like, you don't touch.
Is the third stool
stem.
leg.
The third leg of this was Dan Harmon and Rob Schraub, who we had also randomly contacted because they had made this Heat Vision and Jack pilot that we were all watching. I don't know how we got a copy of it, but we were obsessed with that. We found out that they were doing these short film festivals in LA, and so we submitted some shorts for that, and kind of got into their world, this Channel 101 world. And Jack saw those really early on because he was friends with Dan. And so even when I was still living in New York, I remember going to this Saturday Night Live after party because randomly I had a friend who worked on the show. It was like not connected to comedy in any way, but Jack Black was there, and he like came up to me, and this is before Tom Goes to the Mayor was even on the air and all that stuff, and he was like, "I'm such a fan. I saw your short that you did with Dan and Rob," and it was very strange because he was already kind of a big deal by then.
Wow.
Jack Black.
30 episodes of Tom Goes to the Mayor. 2 seasons.
2 seasons.
Yeah. And polarizing.
Yeah, right away.
Instantly. Love, hate.
It created the fan base, which was sort of, we had a little fan base from our website, I guess. But it created a fan base that many of them are still with us today. But yes, right away it created a lot of anger towards us from the Adult Swim community, which continues to this day as well.
Do you feel like the Adult Swim community that had already been established rejected it in some ways because it was different? Or why was it polarizing?
Well, I mean, it's a weird show that is not easy to watch because of the way that the animation works. And it's kind of subtle and weird. And I totally fully accept and understand that it's not going to be for everybody. But it is a weird thing to like put something out into the world and then find out that there's this place. And this is kind of before, I think really before Reddit and before like 4chan and all those places. But there was like the Adult Swim message board where we saw for the first time that there was this group of people that were so, at least online, so negative and so angry and sort of sick in the way that they displayed their displeasure and things, like the sort of early shit posting of like that these guys should die of AIDS and that these F words and just nasty personal stuff about me and Eric right away.
Actively angry. about-
Actively angry, yes. That you see now all over the place. But I don't know if I guess that was around
You started
for
that.
a while, but we pioneered that.
So how did that feel? The mixed feeling, I'd imagine, of having a new show
Yeah.
out of nowhere, kind of, and have people talking shit about it at the same time.
I think there was part of us where we were young and we were feeling very confident in our ideas and confident in the team that we had. We had Jonathan Kreisel and Doug Lusenhop and a couple other people, Ben Berman, and some people that were, I don't think Ben was there yet, but some people that we really liked and we were really gelling with creatively, and we were digging the work, and we were very excited to have just moved to LA and have our own office and have people working for us and making stuff. And we were really excited by that. But there was also a really hard show to make, technically, believe it or not. It was because we kind of had to learn how to make it on our own with a lot of help from Jonathan Kreisel, the editor, who kind of sort of co-directed it with us in a way, because he was building a lot of the worlds. And so that was most of, I think, our energy was there. And then the show came. I mean, a lot of that happened before the show came out, because obviously you make a lot of it before. But then Adult Swim was, Lazo was and you, as sort of our direct contact there, were always very supportive of it and thought it was funny up to a point. And then I think by the time we were in the second season, I think we all recognized that it kind of lost its way a little bit, or gotten too wacky or something, and couldn't figure out how to make it better, fix it or something. But what the encouraging thing was that Adult Swim, mostly Mike and you, were like, we love you guys and we love your sense of humor. So let's end this and come up with something else. Let's try something else. Keep making stuff. Let's figure out something else to do. And that spirit was very encouraging.
Because you guys had built a machine that makes stuff. And I'll never forget, I think the funniest thing on Tom Goes to the Mayor was Burnsing. And to me, that stood out because it was not animated.
Oh yes. So we started leaning more and more in Tom Goes to the Mayor to just shooting commercials or shooting live action moments from the show. The Married News team, I think, started showing up there. And we were obviously, animation is not something Eric and I ever really started doing, or, that's not how we started. We didn't have a passion for cartoons. We didn't, we felt a little out of place doing it that way. It was a nice entrance. It was a nice way to learn how to make a TV show, I guess. But it wasn't our passion. Our passion was making films and shorts and live action stuff. So we leaned that way. And while we were doing Tom Goes to the Mayor, towards the end, we started making this video podcast, the Tim and Eric podcast, which was basically like a proto version of Awesome Show, which is very like us hosting a little sketch show with little scenes. And so that we were always trying to find ways to cram live action stuff into that show and putting stuff out there into the internet.
So in some ways, you were sort of reluctantly doing an animated show, and then that organically fell away.
Yes. Yeah, we learned, like I said, we learned a lot about how to make any kind of TV, how to staff people, and how to have employees and all that kind of stuff, and even how to tell stories in a learning how to tell little stories, which Bob helped out with a lot.
And so you had the mechanics of how to make a show, how to deliver a show, how to create and
how
produce.
to deal with the network, how to just kind of the
HR
business
and the building,
the business
the landlord.
side, yeah. So that primed us up for Awesome Show.
What was Bob's role at the beginning of Awesome Show?
I think it was. I don't really remember. I think it was a lot of talking about what we wanted the show to be. I think actually, we had some problems coming up with a name for it, and
Yeah.
and he helped us.
I remember one of them.
One was "Let's Have Fun Again,"
Let's have fun again.
and because that came out of this idea of the end, the last few episodes of Tom Goes to the Mayor got really dark, and
Yes,
of course,
really dark.
Awesome Show would go very dark as well. But there was a feeling in our office of like, let's just have fun again. Let's do silly things. Let's be silly and not talk about sons, or Tom's sons killing themselves or Tom's suicide or something. So, but yeah, we were like, that. I think you guys didn't like it, and Lazo was like, find a different title, and we went out to lunch with Bob, and we started playing around with Great Job and Awesome Show, and
Where did Great Job come from?
I think it was just that conversation. We wrote it on a napkin, and it was so ridiculous to include that. I think it just made us laugh, and it never went away. It was maybe thought of originally as just a temporary joke that we enjoyed, but then we kind of got addicted to it.
People are always writing things on napkins.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it might have been an envelope.
Back of an envelope.
Eric probably has that. He's good at saving stuff like that.
When did you know that Awesome Show was going to be as significant as it is currently perceived to be?
I don't know that yet.
You don't think?
I know now that people consider it. I mean, it's I guess influential or and it gets there's so much. We made so many of them. I mean, not that many. We made 50 of them, I guess. That there's lots of bits that get used in all sorts of out of context ways.
Was it hard to start it up coming out, or was it such a relief to not have to be saddled with the animation?
No, that first season was tough too because we're not guys that have like a ton of ideas, and we're very picky with the ideas, and so we started with like a really. I think this is true about like bands. They always like their first album is like every song they've ever written, and then they're done with that, and then they have to come up with a bunch more songs.
So you got all your ideas out.
So all these old ideas were like sitting on a document somewhere for years, and we were like thinking, how are we going to reuse these, and how are we going to like improve them? And
because this is all we have.
this is all we have. And we did some writing meetings and stuff, and filled it in with as much as we could, and then like shot some stuff. Some stuff didn't work. It was again learning what the show was, not really getting, not hitting all the time, and then like I remember in the first couple episodes, it might be I don't know. I don't watch the show. I've never watched the show. I mean, early on there was a scene where like we're in this hallway and we're like trying to come up with ideas and we're like freaking out. Eric starts doing some weird dance in the hallway, and that was really like I think shot while we were editing one of the episodes and being like, we should just go in the hallway and shoot something. Like we had created a system where we had this small office with funny young people and digital cameras and digital everything, so you could literally go outside and shoot something after you'd edited an episode, and everything was so malleable and flexible that you could just take a sketch and throw it upside down and recut it and throw it away and to use 1 second of it, that kind of thing. So we were discovering that was the key to this show, was to not be precious about anything and not and just like make the show in the editing room as opposed to like this sketch, then that sketch, then that sketch. So that took a little bit of time to figure that out, how that would actually work.
So you would find stuff. You wouldn't necessarily write stuff. You would find stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a mix. There would certainly a lot of written ideas and commercials and scenes and stuff that all were not just kind of improvised. They were written and talked about and planned. But then the show was not always about that. It was more about like how you could find stuff in the editing and certain John and Doug would make little animations. They'd make the "Where's My Chippy" thing, and they would make little kind of Terry Gilliam-ish, if you know, to compare it to Monty Python, to these little kind of segues that help define the tone of the show.
Tell us about the editing. So maybe people who don't know a lot about how the shows are made. I mean, Kreisel and Doug Pound.
Yeah, and this guy Chris McD, who we brought, who was an animator on Tom Goes the Mayor.
It's been the style seems to be a house style that you have, or at least for that show, has been imitated and advertised, imitated relentlessly.
Well, there was some of it, and always some of it in our earliest stuff with Eric. I think Eric always tells a story about him making our Cat Film Festival video and editing it, and he taped over this ice skating performance that he had filmed for some family, and he accidentally left in this jump cut from me in the Cat Film Festival video to this ice skating thing that's like a blip frame kind of, and he sent it to me being like, I still have some work to do on this, and obviously I'll take out that. And I was like, no, that's awesome. I don't remember saying that. He's always said that I said that. So early in our stuff, there's always been weird editing things and sort of our love of lo-fi, mistakes and unintentional errors and bad local production. And so there's some of that. And then Doug and Jonathan found other ways. And there were other people making stuff at the time. And not enough credit goes to Derek Beckles, who did the TV Carnage stuff that were these great DVDs of found footage that he would re-edit and recontextualize. And there was another video art group a group of guys called Animal Farm, I think, sort of more on the art scene. But Doug was friends with them, but Doug would do these weird little editing Final Cut Pro tricks where he would just kind of sort of cycle back and forth and make things loop and find little sound things. And, that a lot of that was him. And then us kind of being in there and like pushing him to do more of that. And, really like getting excited when something made us laugh and saying, how can we do more of that? How can we write so that those things happen more often? And,
feeding that.
Yeah.
Do when you see that sort of replicated in the world, does that piss you off?
I'm taking my sweatshirt off. I'm getting hot just being in the same room with you.
Yeah. It's common.
I mean, no, it's I don't
Flattering?
get too I don't think about it too much.
Okay.
I don't like if something's just like a total steal.
Yeah.
But I get that these ad guys are all like 27 years old, years old, and grew up watching it.
They like it. Talk about the actors or the performers, the people.
Yeah. Well, Eric and I, one of our sort of laws of the show was to not make it a sketch show that we had seen before, which featured other funny people playing old men. That was our big, like the Saturday Night Live move of having a troupe and having wigs. And, if we were like going to have somebody be like an old man, we would just want to get an old man. And we soon found that we've always loved, Andy Kaufman did this a lot. And I mean, Woody Allen did it a lot, I think. And I mean, a lot of people just found really interesting characters that weren't necessarily like actors with a capital A. They were just kind of personalities, or they just had great faces or great natural deliveries. And we wanted to do, in the Coen brothers, I mean, I think there's like a tradition of casting outsider types into parts that make it feel more real and more genuine. And we definitely found some weird people, and we felt like, and Letterman with what's his name,
Calvert DeForest,
whose name on the show
Larry
was
Bud Melman.
Larry Bud Melman. Yeah, so we grew up with all that stuff. And found, some real strange types. And certainly in Los Angeles, that's not hard if you're looking for it. And we wanted to create like a very weird, insane, surreal place throughout the whole show. Not to keep ragging on Saturday Night Live, but this idea that there would be this cool band playing, and this guy playing the blues starts the show with the cool actors.
Yeah.
And
In
then
the
it's
subway
like,
station.
and now the comedy begins after all this cool stuff. We just wanted the whole immersive experience to be wild. And we just brought in weirdos from the street, and sometimes it would just be like, guys who weren't the best actors, or but who had put in a headshot, and we just wanted to play with like bad acting and bad performances and weirdos and stuff.
Did that backfire ever? Did they know that they were being included because they're bad?
No, I think most of there's been one case out of all the work we've done where I think somebody wrote us being like, I don't like the way I was portrayed. And it was not somebody that didn't even,
Yeah.
It was not a big deal. It was like, dude, but I don't know what you want me to say. We wrote this thing, and you agreed to do it, and you do look ridiculous in it, but so do I. Like, nobody looks more ridiculous in that show than me.
Yeah.
So,
I've seen your nipples more than any man.
yeah, that's my choice. It's everybody's choice, but everybody else. I mean, over all the years, all those people from that show are always calling our producer, being like, "What's going on? When's the next time? When are you shooting again? I would love to be." And they have their own fans, and they have, and our audience is always really nice to
They didn't feel
everybody.
exploited. They felt they want to do more.
No, it was a job. I mean, it's an acting job, and it was all explained, and there was no hidden cameras or anything like that. It was like, here's the bit, and whether they know that they're not good at what they're doing in a traditional sense, I don't really know. I think they're just the environment is always pretty fun and positive, and I think most people have a good sense of humor about themselves, and if they feel like they're being made fun of because of how they perform or how they look or something, I think if you're in this business, you have to get over that, and don't do it again.
How did John C. Reilly get involved?
We were in the second season of Tom Goes to the Mayor, and we reached out to him to play a part. My friend, I think, in an episode, my best friend or something, Tom's best friend. And I just so happened to have went to this birthday party for this guy, Ron Lynch, who is a comedy LA mainstay guy.
Burnsing.
Who was a voice. Yeah, he was the voice of one of the city council members on Tom Goes to the Mayor. Anyways, he was also friends with John, and I met John there at that party. I introduced myself. He said, "Hey, we sent you a script for our show, Tom Goes to the Mayor," and he goes, "Oh yeah, that was really funny. I usually don't think comedy scripts are funny because I've been getting a lot of them, and they don't make me laugh. And so he said, I'll come in and do it. What the hell?" And he came in and saw the little office that we had, which had all these hipsters running around in hoodies, and everybody looked like they were in a band or something. And he was just like, who, what is this? Like, who's in charge? And we're like, we're in charge. And he's like, wow, and I think we were starting because it was the end of that. It was one of the last episodes we were doing. And so we were starting to write Awesome Show and think about that. And we had some ideas up on the board, and he was like, what's this? What are these ideas? So what's the next sketch show we're doing? He's like, well, I want to be in that. And I want, we just got along pretty much right away, and he wanted to be he comes from like the Actors Gang theater, which is, and other theater, like he comes from like a very, like the joy of the joy of acting and the joy of like being just doing it as an art form, or whatever. And what we were doing in that space was like the furthest thing from probably some of the Hollywood style industry kind of work that he was involved. Unpolished, sort of anarchistic, and yeah. So he dug it all.
What a specific character. How does that character come about with
Brule?
Yeah, Brule. How does Steve Brule come around? Sweet Berry Wine.
Came right away. Well, it came right away, but then, as you know, it evolved and devolved over the years. So it was like he had the green suit. He had the name. He had this like name Brule that he had since when he was a kid or something. Like it was like a joke amongst his friends. And we were doing the Married News, and they were already in the show in the world. And he said I should be like a correspondent on the show. And we said, totally, let's come up with some ideas for you. And we wrote some ideas, and we shot like a ton of them in one day. And it was funny right away.
So you had the confidence you could direct him?
Yeah, we always had that. But I mean, we pretty much always had that for some reason. I think like we learned with working with Jack Black, most people are pretty cool, and you feed off of that, and with Eric and I both kind of bouncing off each other, we can handle it. And one of the first people we had come in was Jeff Goldblum, and he's a total like childhood icon of ours,
Sure.
But within like a second, he's just a guy. Once you're in the room with a person like that, he's a guy, and he's good at making you feel kind of comfortable and just being nice. And then you just kind of play and get to work, and you forget about the fact that he's the guy from The Fly, and you just kind of having seemingly normal little bit of work together.
Did you have people who didn't fit in well with you on Awesome Show? One-offs?
We were pretty careful about who we went out to. We didn't rush out to every comedian we thought we could get on. So we usually brought in people we thought would work well. I mean,
I'd imagine.
obviously the people you see come back over time are the ones that we got along good with. There are a few one-offs that, we're like, okay, that was cool. Don't need to explore any more of that. But I don't really remember. I mean, the only bad experience we had really was with Gary Busey, which he did a voice on Tom Goes to the Mayor. And, I've shown this footage over the years a few places, but there's footage of him in our office where he's just a terrorist, a human, like a nightmare, a full day of, not a full, like a full afternoon of just being fully terrorized by a complete lunatic.
Yeah, wow.
Which was not fun. And I think now if that would have happened, I would have just, left, or I would just ask him to leave and not worried about getting Gary Busey. But at the time we were so nervous about like blowing this money on one guy, and it was very intimidating and upsetting. But ever since then, I don't think there's ever been anybody that was just like, oh my God.
And then a movie comes around, and how does the movie affect your life?
What movie?
$1 billion movie.
Oh, well, it was
Your first movie.
Yeah, first movie. We were also winding Awesome Show down at the time because we just felt like, well, we had made 5 seasons of this, and we felt a little drained by the pace of it and whether we wanted to do more of that show. And, our agent and people like that were kind of like, Funny or Die, or Gary Sanchez, which is Will Ferrell and Adam McKay's company. They're interested in producing movies. If you guys have any movie ideas, they'd love to hear them. And so then Eric especially and me were like, that's our real dream. That's why we went to film schools to make movies. Movies are the best. So fuck this Adult Swim bullshit.
Yeah.
So it started there, just being like, let's go in and talk about what kind of movie we could make if we had any ideas. And we sat with Adam McKay and a couple other guys there and sort of talked about how our sensibility would work in a movie. And it sort of started there. We went off and wrote and just kind of came up with this story. And over time, we went out, found a person to pay for it, and off we went to make it. And it was again, another very hard thing to do. Very stressful and but fun and satisfying, and again, something that was very polarizing. We were always Eric and I we were talking about this a little while ago. Like, I think we went into that being like, hey, maybe we'll make like a real popular movie, you know, maybe we'll make like, this will be the thing that breaks us into the mainstream, you know, but it seems like, you know, maybe we would be able to do that now, but still, we were still so like nuts and sort of aggressively, you know, kind of interested in blowing it all up and trying to just completely be our own animals, that we made something that's very crazy again.
Tell me about the tours that you guys had, because you guys had a lot of tours and they
Yeah.
reached a lot of people. Especially, you mentioned that you would go to towns that were so grateful that you would show up in these sort of less well-known towns.
Well chosen words. You're
Well-known
hedging.
towns.
Eric and I mean, Eric more than me, but we both played in bands, and there was always the idea of touring and getting out there and selling your stuff to people directly, you know, literally and figuratively, like getting in front of people, and we pitched it to Adult Swim as a good way to promote the show as it was coming out, and it kind of like would get the show. I mean, because you know, local papers aren't going to write about the show being on TV, but they will if you're in their town that weekend. So that was the idea. We weren't I mean, obviously we didn't invent the concept of performing live as comedians or
No,
whatever.
but to take a TV show
Yeah.
to a town and then enhance that with a live performance seemed new to me.
I mean, I think probably Monty Python did live shows, but I mean, yeah, it seemed smart to like use some of the promotional budget that existed for the show to go out there and do something more than just sort of like a signing or an appearance, but put on like a fun rock show. I mean, David Cross was doing that, I think, a few years before with his stand-up, which was to bring stand-up into rock clubs and not just comedy clubs, and make it kind of a less of a suit and tie, or like just like a less of a kind of a bummer of a night, like just make it a more fun thing. And we just sort of said, let's put together a show that is dumb and loud and funny, and then show some clips so that we can change costumes. You know, that was kind of, and we had to have something to break up the night to go into our different looks or different sketches. So yeah, it was, it started pretty small, like doing 200, 300 seat or, you know, little rock clubs and figuring out what worked. And
you did the Troubadour in LA, you know.
Yeah.
Elton John's first show.
That's right.
And then you guys doing the Muscles for Bones benefit for Richard Dunn. And it was filled to capacity, and the crowd, it blew me away how enthusiastic the crowd was, knew every single word to every, you know, crazy song that you guys had. It struck me that these guys have a deep fan base.
They're very strong, and I don't know. I mean, we're here doing this On Cinema show tonight. That's why you're here. That's why I'm in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And they're a similar group of people. We do these shows. They know all the references. They're very grateful and very nice people, and I like many of them.
So 10 plus years later, you're doing On Cinema. Mm-hmm. Talk about the genesis of On Cinema.
Well, it started, Greg and I were doing a movie called The Comedy. We were both in this movie called The Comedy. And we were as when you're and this was a little movie, but on any movie, you're as an actor, you're always kind of sitting around and waiting for the cameras and stuff. And there was this period of time where there was a lot of I think Mark Maron's podcast had come out. And there's a lot of like comedians making podcasts, and a lot of it was kind of bloviating, I don't know, just kind of self-important talking about stuff. And we thought we we should do something to satirize that. And somehow it was just like, let's do something about movies. We could take the movie Ghostbusters and we don't know anything about Ghostbusters, but let's talk about it for 5 minutes. It was just the most, the broadest kind of ideas about it. It's a great movie. Yeah. It had a lot of scary parts and, and it was funny too. And, and Bill Murray, of course, is great. And, and then that was it. That was the show. And so we just thought that was hilarious. And we did let's do just a bunch of these. And as we started doing more, these characters started coming up out of it, which were kind of natural. They kind of naturally happened where I became a little more aggressive and a little more alpha and demented in my own way. And Greg became more of this kind of pure student or pure sort of film buff who only wanted to talk about movies. And I only wanted to talk about myself. And we had done a bunch of the podcast, and it was very underground, and I don't know, like just the hardest of hardcore on cinema fans. I mean, Tim and Eric fans kind of dug it. Nobody was really paying attention to it that much. But the Joe Randazzo, who used to run the Onion, was given a bunch of money, or he wasn't, but he sort of was charged with starting this thing called Thing X by Adult Swim, right?
Right.
And it was this sort of weird website where they were going to make a bunch of content and sort of like a super deluxe. I mean, you guys have had a tremendous history of trying to develop other sites alongside Adult Swim.
You guys.
Well, I mean,
not me.
No, I know, but I'm saying like the Turn or whatever. It was like,
right.
And we were always saying from the beginning, I mean, we were in there at the beginning of the first Super Deluxe and the second Super Deluxe. And it's like, but you guys already have adultswim.com. Why don't you just put everything on there?
Here we are.
So, but anyways, Joe was looking for stuff to do. And he said, I love this on Cinema Podcast. You guys should think about doing it as like a video, like Siskel and Ebert. It was very, it was clear that like there was a model for doing like at the movies with Siskel and Ebert kind of show. So we started doing it. And then by doing the first season, we started building more and more of the characters and the backstories and introducing little side things. And, it was so easy to shoot because it was just 3 cameras and 2 guys sitting that you could sort of talk about things that were happening in their lives without having to see them happen. And that became kind of this entryway into telling bigger, more elaborate soap opera stories that, we could just talk about and the fans could imagine and also talk about on their own. And it grew from there.
So this field full of little seeds and let them grow organically.
Yeah. I mean, after a few seasons of it, I think we took it a little more seriously about, okay, where can this go? What are some, what are some storylines that we could take these characters and we realized that we were kind of building a world, or as they say now in this business, a universe. Right. It used to be a world, now it's a universe. But it was it compounded on itself, and the more we added to it, the richer it could become. And then Decker kind of, everything starts small. Like Decker starts as this one episode where I'm like, I went and shot, I'm going to make my own movie. Forget these movies that I'm reviewing. I'm going to make my own movie. And we just shot something on green screen and we're like, ooh, that's fun. Let's figure out ways to do more of that. And so, you just like when everyone starts like digging on something, you figure out how to do more of that, do it better, do it bigger.
So from On Cinema, Decker has sprung out of that, of the band.
Dakar, you mean?
The TV show Decker, the band Dakar.
And the EDM group DKR.
The EDM group DKR, The Trial.
The Trial, baby.
Yeah. The Trial, I think, surprised people.
Some people think it's the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
I might agree with you, but...
Really?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
The Trial is to people who don't know, what is it?
Who cares? In the show, in the On Cinema show, my character, in like the ninth season, became addicted to this vape this vape medicine that he had developed with this other guy, Dr. San, and he also got into this EDM world, and he started a big EDM music festival in the desert, and gave out a bunch of free vape pens, and all these kids died at the festival from the vape pens. So it was
a very funny premise.
Really, I was arrested. I got, and that was like the storyline of that season. So we didn't know where to take it from there. We said, well, we always go like, well, where can this go? Like we've just.
So you don't all. I mean,
we don't have a big.
I know the
grand,
answer. You don't know where.
We don't know where things are going season to season, really. But we just kind of follow our noses, I guess, and talk about it a little bit. But we have some ideas about where it might eventually go and all that stuff. But so we said, well, it'll be fun to like shoot the trial. It's really just starts like that. And once we decided that's what we would do, then you sort of sit down and figure out, okay, how can this be the best version of that possible? Like what if we're going to spend a lot of time doing this, like, how can we get it? Because we didn't want to do in this world, everything has to feel pretty real or it just falls apart.
And it has to make sense with what you've already established.
Yeah. So once we started talking about it, we said, well, it should be sort of like the OJ trial. It should feel like, it's not C-SPAN or like court TV. Right away, we're like, okay, good. That seems, and we're all kind of like, it seems kind of easy to do if you, from a production standpoint, you just need to find a courtroom and hire a few people and get the cameras set up and then just shoot away and do it a few times. And then you should kind of have it. And if we, then we just sort of wrote it. We kind of wrote what we wrote, like we wanted me to have a lawyer for the beginning and then for me to fire the lawyer and for me to take over. And it all kind of, then we were like, oh, then we can kind of litigate the entire show through this. Like we can go through all the relationships, and we could go through my relationship with Greg and Mark and Ayaka, and like really make this like almost, if we wanted it to be the end of the show, it is almost like, I think Seinfeld did that when they had at the end of the show, they had a trial.
Yours was longer.
Yeah, mine was. So we said, well, but the one thing we really want to do is not just, we want to feel real, therefore it has to be long, because you're not going to just, what's the point to just show like highlights of this? Like, let's just, if we're all there and we get all these people, it's not that, it doesn't balloon things that much to just go through as much of the real time process as possible. And we felt like the fans would appreciate that and watch it, because also people watch hours and hours and hours of fucking everything.
How long was it?
I mean, well, it was 5 hours, I think. But
it's not something.
But there's
you can
like
put on
1,000 hours of fucking Game of Thrones that people watch in a weekend, or those murder podcasts that people plow through hours and hours of them. There was The Staircase, which I love, the documentary series. That was 6 hours, and it's like if something is compelling, we feel like it doesn't matter how long it is. And also the fact that this was just going to go up on the internet anyways. It's like, who cares how long it is? Let it be however long it should be. And you guys were pretty cool about that. I think there was the idea of like, we'll make some highlights. You can watch like condensed versions, but I just kept saying, just watch the whole thing. It pays off.
If you're going to do it, I mean, you can't do it on TV, so
yeah,
do the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, what's the difference with TV versus the website?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, things are now just all unraveling, where it's like, well, be however long you want it to be, but whatever is working for you to tell the story, or it's a good storytelling device, the trial, that you can tell a story through questions and answers, and it's kind of what a real trial is supposed to be. You're supposed to kind of explain how something happened. So it was a good device for us.
So you're here on tour with On Cinema Live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what's next for On Cinema, or what's next for you? You're an major movie star.
Oh, I'm a small part in the movie Us.
You're not a small part.
Well,
you actually played two parts. No spoiler alert, but you're in it twice.
I don't know. I never know what's next. Everything just kind of either nothing happens or things fall in my lap. I got an album coming out in June of my music, Sirius semi-serious songs that I like writing and making.
How
So
many
that's
albums do you
coming-
have out now?
Well, we can look at my discography on Wikipedia,
All right.
but we got Yellow River Boys. We have 2 Heidecker and Wood records. We've got a Trump, the Too Dumb for Suicide, songs about Donald Trump, and then the follow-up EP called Another Year in Hell in Glendale, and then the songs of Herman Cain, the Cainthology.
Cane Train.
And so there's about 7. This will be 8. And then there's the Awesome Show songs that we've had volume 1 come out, and there's a volume 2 that's been 10 years sitting
That's
in
a
the
great album.
closet.
That is a
Well, the
funny album.
second volume is going to be great too because it's got all the songs from
Has
like
it not
the
been
second.
released?
No,
release
it's
it.
been sitting up. Oh, please, I've been begging.
Who you been begging?
This was years ago where I said like, here's the tracks. We just need like a little money to like master them or something.
right.
But
How do you reconcile, before we end, your polarizing comedy with your polarizing politics? Does it bother you when some of your fans turn on you, or do you win people
I don't
over
consider them fans if they've turned on me.
Mm-hmm.
They've never were fans. No, I don't know. I don't care. I mean, I
you
feel
can be yourself, no matter what?
Yeah, I mean, I just got to do what I feel I need to do, and that's how we've always done That's how we've never made anything for an audience. We've made stuff for ourselves and been grateful that people like it, but we're not like, are they going to like this or not, or what can we do to make our audience happy? You know, I mean, we do that, I guess, in a way with touring, and I mean, we charge a lot of money, but we don't, we charge, we're not doing it for free, but we care about our audience, and I'm grateful that, and when people say nice things, I'm very grateful and happy, but, I don't make decisions about what I say or what I do based on what I think people are going to
Well, presumably
think.
you say those things because you care about those also,
care about.
the things that you're fighting for.
Yeah. I would never like silence myself because I felt that would be risking losing an audience. If I lose an audience because of that, then, I'll have to figure something else out to do.
What's your next big Hollywood movie?
I'm going to be in the Goonies remake. I'm playing Chunk. I have no idea. I'm waiting for the phone to ring.
All right.
I got a sound check.
Music from this episode is a song called When I Get Up from Tim Heidecker's album, What the Broken Hearted Do. Visit adultswim.com for links to some of the things we were just talking about, and thanks for listening.
When I get up, all I wanna do is go to bed again. Go